is, I said that certain types of targets are very difficult to avoid, the targeted types of attacks. But having the proper infrastructure in place makes the targets more difficult, and it can even, like, if the effort to perform the attack is too high, they can probably select another victim rather. But if it's easier, of course, it's more likely to be a part of that. We can use multi-platform systems, so if to gain access to confidential data means going through different types of system windows, Linux and so on, different types of defenses, firewall, antivirus, anti-spam, encryption, two-factor authentication, whatever measures exist today, of course it will be more difficult. But if you use like multi-platform system, but from all the platforms you can gain access to the confidential data. Unfortunately, it's even easier because by attacking any of the systems, you will get information. And the maintenance for the more complex systems is more complicated. So it is dependent on the other measures, and this is what needs to be said. Like, the technology is not enough. We need to really design properly the systems. It's really cool to have access to everything online. Everything can be online today. All your data can be online today, and in school you can access all your emails, all your data from your mobile phone. But just as you are able to access those data, so they are available to anyone in the world. So it is reasonable to define which data you want to have available online and which not. And if there are some really confidential data, I will give an example. We are a software company, and of course, source code for our software is one of the most important data we process. The developers, of course, the way they like to work is they are working on the computer, they are writing the code, and then whenever they need an information, they look for something on the internet, and then if they find it, they will copy, for example, a declaration of the function or whatever directly from the internet to the source code. This is very dangerous, because if they are able to access the internet on the same machine that has access to the source code, there is no guarantee they will not go to an infected web page. There is no guarantee that the security measures they have on the computer will prevent the attack and that source code will not be stolen. So in such cases, what is needed is to really separate the network that is working with such data from the internet, physically separated. That's probably the only way how to improve the security a lot. Even though it doesn't mean it is like a total security, because data transfer exists every time. You cannot just have one closed network and think like nobody will ever move the information from or to the network. So this is it, and of course try to avoid disclosing information that are not necessary to be disclosed, and it's difficult because the world today, like the business life and private life in IT sector, are really not connected. So people like to talk about what they do on the Facebook. They want to express themselves on the network, and unfortunately, this kind of information, once it gets to the internet, it is likely to stay there. So you say something today, and then in 2 years, someone might use it against you. So you need to be careful about that. And human factor. When you have the right security measures in place, the right systems running, the right infrastructure, the human factor might be the biggest point, and usually is the biggest point can go from the like easy thing like being lazy, using simple passwords, using same passwords for different platforms, to more complicated things like you can imagine, even though it is not very common these days, but it's not difficult to imagine that you have a very important company that is using very good security measures, using the proper system and so on. And there is a group that is really interested in obtaining those confidential data. So I think it's not too difficult to imagine that someone might come to someone from the IT team in the company and use even physical attacks against him, like, you know, those people in the IT team, they're usually military secret agents who know what to do when someone holds a gun against their head. So this is like extreme thinking, but unfortunately is something that should be taken into account too. And we cannot rule out even such possibility. There are many people working in companies, in big organizations. There are many people. They usually don't like the security measures because they make their life much more difficult. But the proper education might help here, because if they understand why those measures are needed, they are much more likely to understand it. And our experience, because we are working in the field of education, we are providing the materials, we are working with a group. Knowledge is that when people learn about the risk, they are interested, they like to know what is going on, what are the risks, what can happen to them. And when they learn that, they are much more likely to follow the measures. And I will